Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone. Welcome to week 3. This week we are focusing on theories of literacy development from the 1930s to present day. I'm going to be talking over a PowerPoint that was originally authored by these women here, and I've adopted it. I made some changes, done some things, added some stuff, taken some stuff out. So these are the questions to guide our learning. What is the theory of cognitive development? Who wrote it? What's maturation theory? What's the theory of literacy development? What is emergent literacy theory and family literacy theory? And then how higher level thinking here, rather than just what are they, but how are they reflected in reading instruction and reading research? And if you are going to, how do they affect your learning or maybe your teaching of your own children? Well, these are our course objectives and our course student learning outcomes that we are covering this week or introducing this week. So these are the different things. We'll touch a little bit on the schema theory here, but not much, and we may cover that more next week. But we definitely talk about the cognitive factors in the literacy development and what stages and phases they go through. So you should master this SLO3, hopefully by the end of this week, or be a good way there. And then by the end of the course, be able to recommend some age-appropriate methods for integrating literacy across the curriculum as we start to develop some strategies with that. And the strategies are going to come through what we do and how we respond to one another, but also some that we'll learn later on in the course. So this is Jean Piaget, and he is kind of the father of the theory of cognitive development, which has been very influential. This is an example of how you are going to record your thoughts this week as you navigate through our content and this PowerPoint, and also the different readings. So if you click on this, you can kind of see when if I'm just down here and I click, it's going to take you out to Dropbox, and you can download this, you can print it, or you can just kind of look at what it is and just get yourself a copy of it so that you can use it to record your thoughts. So I'd like for you to make sure that you are doing that. And we'll go ahead and go on here. Go ahead and pause if you need to and come back. So the theory of cognitive development is one of the most famous theories used to explain how children develop. It is used by literacy educators and other educators to just understand how children are developing and where they're at, so they know what to do for them to help them achieve and improve. There's 4 stages to this cognitive theory. Sensory motor stage, which is birth to 2 years, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational is the last stage through adult. First, we start off with the sensory motor stage, which is birth to 2 years of age. And it's basically exploring the world through our senses, just as it sounds like with that word sensory motor. So you use a lot of board books that crinkle, use sounds, with like the moos, and that's where there's a lot of those push and make noises inside books at this age. It's based on this theory of cognitive development that they need to use and interact with their senses. This is a picture of my granddaughter, Emerson, when she was 5 months old. We tried to do that with her, right? We tried to get her interacting with books and print and color. It looks like she's reading right here. Anyway, she is 9 now. She was a preemie, and she has had a little bit of struggling reading. This is a little sensory motor video. I will let you watch that on your own. This will be posted on Canvas for you. And it just shows you how children don't have object permanence yet. So they think objects, you know, when they cover them up, that they're just gone. That's why they like peekaboo so much. But as they start to go through it, they adapt a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and skip through that, but will you please play it and watch it? Then we have the pre-operational stage, which is next. And these ages are very flexible. Some will develop faster, others will develop a little bit slower, but they are kind of just these stages that most go through, some more rapidly than others. And again, this is just one theory. So this is when children really start picking up their vocabulary, and it is important to be reading and talking about and discussing stories and using a variety of vocabulary with children. And here is a video that demonstrates that as well. And again, you might not need to watch the whole thing, but watch just the pre-operational stage of that. Then we move into the concrete operational stage, which is where my granddaughter should be right now. And I don't know if she's here or if she's more a blend of this in the pre-operational stage. I know that in some respects she's here, but as you'll see in the video for this one, you can like in this concrete operational video, the young man has concrete operational, he's got what's called conservation for being able to see numbers, but possibly not liquid. Or I may have that confused, but that's concrete operational. And then the last stage that we go through is the formal operational. And we are able to think in abstracts. And what's really important here is metacognitive reading strategies, that we introduce those and we ask students to think about their thinking, to monitor their own comprehension and pause and say, do I understand what I'm reading? So right now, pause as you're listening and walking through this with me. And where are you? Have you kind of tuned out? Are you doodling? Are you making notes? Are you using strategies that will help you? Are you connecting to yourself and people you know that will help you stay engaged with the content? If you're not, then you need to, you know, start incorporating some of those. So here's your formal operational video that you can watch. This is a slide summary of what we just talked about here. So the Piaget. One thing we didn't go over too much is here, the 4 factors that affect the quality of thinking as an individual grows. So genetic heredity. So some, like as for example, even or physiological things at genetics. My granddaughter was a preemie, and so there's some physiological structures in her brain that probably have, you know, needed a little bit more exercise than some who did not have that challenge. Physical, your activity, your social experiences, and equilibration, which is their search for cognitive balance with themselves. So it all factors in. If a child is not very social, is not talked to a lot, or does not, you know, use that vocabulary, then it's definitely going to impact their reading and writing. And they may be just, you know, a slow starter, but it doesn't mean they can't do it. It just means they just need a little more help. So back to our alpha box that we're going to fill out this week to help us respond to our reading in Canvas and discussions is this is it. So for example, from this stage, and these are just a few of the things, you should have more filled in here. There's quite a different few concepts that came from this stage, but Piaget, he's the theorist who came up with the stages of cognitive development here, and the concrete operational stage goes under the C. Sensory motory here is under the S. You might put under the P also pre-operational stage, and then under the F you might put the formal operational stage. You might under S add socialization because that is important to that. So those are some other things that you could add to that. A maybe even up here, cognitive, over here, development. Maturation theory, we're not going to talk much about that because it has been proven to be ineffective. But if you think about what you know about that word mature, right? Maturation, not part of that word mature, it really is about how we mature, right? And that these Morfitt and Washburn theorized that children could not read until about age of 6.5 when they were mature enough for instruction. But that has been proven incorrect and ineffectual, and many children read well before they are 6.5. So it still does have an impact on reading theory, but not the idea of a specific age. Tying it to that. One thing that did come from this model is something called invented spelling. So when it's just like what it says, students invent their own spelling, and that's when they're first start learning to write. And I've definitely seen this in my granddaughter. And so what this theory would say is, don't discourage this. Don't say, oh, you didn't spell that right. Say just let them write and express their ideas. So that's what that theory says. So you can pause and add something to your alpha box for maturation. You could possibly put down holiday's name or just what maturation, just the word. Theory of literacy. I used the wrong theorist back there, sorry. Holdaway is who we are going to next. Theory of literacy development. The theory of literacy development has 4 key components to it: observation, collaboration, practice, and performance, and is closely linked to a child's natural development of oral language skills. So it's a lot about those. We do learn to speak first in any language, and so it follows that. So they observe literacy behaviors first. This is why I asked you about being read to from a parent, because many of these theories recognize that is important, that we have someone modeling and showing us that reading is important. Collaboration, we want to encourage them and ask them to help us, like, what does that picture mean, or point to this, those kind of interactions. They need to be able to practice alone a little bit. And correct themselves. And this is where like that whole metacognition stuff comes in, that crosses over from Piaget's final stage. And then just to be able to perform, to share their new skills with those who support them, not those who are going to tell them everything they're doing wrong, but those who will encourage them that they're developing and doing well. So some characteristics that facilitate natural literacy development is having a rich home library and a rich school library, right? So parents, interactive or caregiver or after school program people who interact in a positive interaction with the book. Label items around the room so they see the print with the item. And this is good for new language learners too. High quality reading, big books, using big books with young children. I used big books with my own children, and it just encourages excitement about it, and print tracking and concepts of letters and words and just stories. And so here's a video you can watch on Shared Read, but big books. So his suggestions, Holdaway's suggestions, are that in the classroom that we use books that are loved or preferred by children. They have large visuals and enlarged text so they can be seen from afar. And the teacher, I'm sorry about the dog, I don't know what she's doing. The teacher needs to present the book to the students with enthusiasm and passion. Really, we need to present everything with enthusiasm and passion. It's a bit contagious. It's hard to be bored when someone's really excited about what they're trying to present and show us. So, but yeah, the books have to be presented that way. So here's a summary of Holdaway's theory of literacy development, that it is just a natural development. And here's, you can see just that fun reading assignment. They're engaged and involving in that, and they too are doing the same. So pause for a moment again, the video, and what are you going to put in your boxes? So what boxes will you complete? What alphabet will you think about? Maybe N right here. Possibly add to your P, big books possibly. So go ahead and jot some things down in your alpha box. And we're going on to another one, stage models of reading. Several theorists and contributors to this, and some even a little bit later after this. But what they've said is we want to develop some stages so educators and parents have a better understanding of what's involved in the reading process, so that as students progress through the stages, then they'll know, okay, now we're moving on and we're ready for this. And then as they progress through the stages, they end up using more and more strategies to help them with their comprehension and learning. So there are 4 stages of word identification in this model. The first is the pre-alphabetic stage, the logographic. So there's visual clues here. They might memorize words by their shape or look. So for example, the M for McDonald's, when they see that M, they know it's McDonald's. When they see the bullseye, they know it's Target. Stop signs. Most children learn that a stop sign is a stop sign well before they know how to read or know what an S or a T or an O or a P is. And those are some other examples there on the page. So what's important is that we do, interact with the children and those, or that whoever is around them do. So if you collect samples to display in, let's say, a pre-K classroom with those things, it's good, or even a daycare center. The second stage is the partial alphabetic stage, so phonetic cue reading. So they know some sounds, and then they start learning what those sounds correlate to as far as the alphabet. We should always go from sound to alphabet, not the other way around. We shouldn't start with the alphabet, oh, this is A, and this is its sound. We should always start with pictures and sounds and then link them back to the letters. So maybe the first letter of the word, and identifying what their name starts with. And it's really just the beginning of just a couple letters. And the alphabet doesn't need to be learned in order. It doesn't have, we don't have to start with the A, E, I. We probably shouldn't start with the vowels. So then the stage 3 is the full alphabetic stage, where the students rely on those blends, those sound blends, and we want them to, again, work in sounds and not be stuck on letter by letter, because that can be a fallback, and then the student doesn't blend well. So moving those full blends. Here we want to just play around. We want to play with letters, numbers, word searches, letter bingo, different sorts. There's alphabet bingo on ABC, yeah. And then the last stage is consolidated alphabetic stage, where it's just automatic. The brain knows what those sounds make, and they have, the ends of these, and they can form other words and do different word sorts. They can read those letter patterns, and they use word family knowledge. Some would say that this would be the stage where we would start with roots. So here's some other activities for literacy here. So this is a summary of the stage models of reading. Teachers can plan and understand what students' needs are and kind of break them into there. If you have a group of students who are here, then you do different things that you're trying to get them to hear. If you have students who are here, you're trying to get them to hear. If you have students here, then we're trying to actually go here. So These are, again, the theorists, and I don't worry about knowing who those are, but just really what you want to understand is this part. So what boxes from this will you complete from the stage models of reading will you complete in your alpha box? So make sure you pause and write some things down. All right, emergent literacy theory. We just have 2 more to go. The second to last, and that was by Morrow. And there's quite a few different people who've added to this emergent literacy theory. You'll hear it referenced to as EL, which a lot of people think of English language learners, but that's not emergent literacy. It really just talks about how it starts from birth until they can read and write at a level of for learning. So rather than learning to read and write, they're reading and writes in order to learn. This theory says that it covers all areas of language, listening, speaking, reading, writing. They're all interrelated. One builds on the other. And it's clear that positive growth in one area will affect and have positive effect on the other areas of development. So I saw this in my oldest son when he started reading. His vocabulary and his speaking level really increased, and his writing level when he chose to really kind of dig in and start reading text and then reading more difficult text. So it doesn't stop. He did that when he was about 18. Started really applying himself. So theorists believe that development starts at birth and is continuous and ongoing, and I would say that's true. Even adults can keep developing their literacy and their ability to articulate. Contrast to other theories, the maturation theory, which would say that, well, once we're 6.5, we've got it, we can do it, right? And so, or before that, we shouldn't be doing it. We're not mature enough to sit and be taught. So it kind of contrasts that. Or the stage models of reading, because this is saying we've got to start earlier and start making our children, students, whoever it is we're working with, aware. So we need rich home literacy environments. We need lots of books, magazines, newspapers, different types of materials. Excuse me. Again, reading always needs to be associated with pleasure. And parents need to be reading to their or caregivers, grandmas, grandpas, anyone, nannies, need to be reading frequently to children. After school programs, we need people reading to children. And in the classroom, it's good to read to those younger students. Even older students tend to like having even someone read to them for 5-10 minutes. Modeling good reading is just good practice all the way throughout instruction. So we talked about what your reading experiences were like as in our introduction. Who am I? Why am I here? And some of you had great models, and other of you had to kind of learn it on your own. So do you remember your first experience with your favorite book, Ray? I do. I'm going to share mine right here. It was Charlotte's Web. I can kind of still remember loving this book and reading it and being excited about it. Before the movie came out long ago, I just remember really relating to Charlotte and having empathy and feeling sad, and it was the first book that I think emotionally connected to. So we help our students do that. So essential understandings that are necessary for this emergent literacy, and there's basically 3 different areas. One is print awareness. We need them to understand that the alphabet does have sounds. Concept of prints, that there's all these different parts of books, and that we go left to right, and questions end with punctuations, and we do talk about the illustrators and how the pictures are part of the book, and that we look at the back of the book and see what it has to say about the book. Those those kind of things. And then we also need sorry, I can't pronounce tonight, phonological awareness, rhyme, alliteration, segmenting, blending of sounds. You know, alliteration, if you don't remember, that's the beginning sound of a letter. So I do an activity in my classes when I'm trying to get to know people, and like I have them do the beginning of their sound, like tenacious, Teresa, or kind, Carly. And even though Carly often starts with a C, the sound is the k, which can be K too, or just different sounds. So we we go through alliteration, and that can help people learn about the difference in those sounds. Blending. So question for you. Do you know how many sounds the English language contains? I should have a the there. So do you know how many sounds the English language contains? Put that down if you do somewhere. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to see if someone knows that. And then the third component of essential understanding is language. So within the language, it's these different things: vocabulary, background knowledge, which is schema, which is basically the mental concept that we have when we see something like dog. When we see dog, when we first learn about dogs, we might have a pet, and so anything that has four legs and walks on all four legs and has fur, we might think is a dog. If we see a sheep, and then we're young, and our parents, we say doggy, and they say no, that's a sheep, then we add that to our schema and we broaden it. Well, that's a part of Piaget that we'll watch in a video a little bit later in the content, not here in this one, but with some other content you'll interact with. Semantics and communication. So classroom applications, people track literacy growth. I would have students track their own. I would do something like this, and I would put it in student-friendly language, have them say, I can ask and answer questions. I can do this, and then they'd rate themselves where they are. Are they nearing it? Have they done? I can distinguish my point of view from that of the author of the text. Do I disagree with them? Do I feel differently? Thematic instruction, and that's going to be a part too. We're going to develop a theme around a book. High quality literature. So literature that engages and has, excuse me, different things. Literacy centers where people can rotate. At chairs sometimes in classrooms. There's some people that just have nice little reading areas, and it makes it pleasurable. So this is that emergent literacy model where we see the print awareness, the phonological awareness, and the language, and the different things that involve those, and then kind of this overlapping in here. But also, we haven't talked about these demographics, community, and culture. We'll kind of go into that aspect next week, but that all plays a role. And so this comprehensive means that's kind of a base of how we develop readers and writers. So here's a summary of the emergent language literacy theory. It starts at birth, and it's ongoing, and we never stop, right? We keep learning. We have to master those print concepts, speaking, all four aspects of communication: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. They're all interrelated, and the environment matters. So go ahead and pause again. And what boxes will you complete in your alpha box here with the emergent literacy theory? So, all right, the last theory, family literacy theory. It really just refers to a series of ideas that researchers share, including the design, implementation, and evaluation of programs. Why? They do that because they want to help facilitate literacy development of family members, and they want to understand the relationship between family literacy and student achievement, and they want to inspire ways in which literacy is naturally used in the home, and look at that. So it really stresses the importance of family involvement on student achievement, and that really does matter. It is one of the only things that helps mitigate the gap between poverty and performance in children. If you have a poor single mom like Ben Carson's mom, and her son comes home and he's basically failing, getting the worst grade in 7th grade, and she made him and his brother go to the library, and she took the TV out of their house, and he got to read whatever he wanted to read about, but it was what turned him into a reader and a thinker and a learner, and he ended up becoming a brain surgeon, a neurologist, and he was the first guy to separate the brain into two hemispheres and take one out in a successful surgery. Fascinating story. A book called Gifted Hands, real easy to read. It's also an older movie, but he ran, also Ben Carson. I don't know if many of you are very political, but he ran for president in the last election. But yeah, he in 7th grade really couldn't read hardly at all. But then his mom made a difference. So the family does matter, right? And so here's some things that you can think about if you are going into education or as a parent, to help other people, to help our society, because the more literate we are, the better of a society we're going to have. We want to make sure that our families are comfortable communicating with teachers, and that parents, we teach parents about school culture, especially those who are not educated themselves, so they understand what it takes for their student to be successful. And we need to help parents understand just one small thing maybe that they can do. That we know their life sometimes is hard, and it's hard to help their students, but we need to give them some things they can do, just something that so they can help. And there's just such an important connection between support from home and what's happening at school. We can involve our parents in the classroom. We can have family information nights with a literacy focus. And we can have reading challenges that we sent home with prizes. So those are some things that we can do. So the big picture, this would take you out to a timeline that will show you with the earliest theory and then the latest theory. It's kind of a fun thing. If you take time to look at it, you can sign up for a free account, and if you need to do a history project or anything else that involves a chronological time thing, it's really interactive and easy to use to develop that. It's kind of a fun little site. So take a look at that. So wrapping it up, what have you learned? And so your task is to continue jotting down keywords and concepts using that AlphaBox template. And here's another link to it. And it will help you prepare your response to reading, discussion, and Canvas this week. So as you go through the reading materials and the lecture materials, including this video, if you keep that up, it will be easy to prepare your response. So have fun this week learning about these theories and relate them to yourself. Think about your family, your cousins, your siblings, yourself, how you learn to read and how they're learning to read in their development, their cognitive development, the way their thought process is developing. And if you watch some of those videos, especially about the pre-operational stage where you have the 2 cups of water and you pour it into a tall glass, and where kids think they're the same amount or not same amount. Test out some children around you and see where they're at. All right, I will check in with you later this week, midweek or so. Have a great week.